I adopted Aros, and then Aros hired me to be his chief of staff, and that's what he calls me, chief of staff. Aros is a self-made man. He's among other things in Utah, and perhaps even in the Western United States, we can consider him an expert in counterterrorism and terrorism. He makes his living doing executive protection, in other words, bodyguarding for important people who feel that their lives are at risk. And he knows what he's doing. The guy is sharp as a tack. He has a master's degree in the area of criminal and international criminal intelligence. He's working on a doctoral degree. Then he'll be Dr. Aros Mackey. Okay. Aros also has his own private investigations business, and he stays quite active in that. And also, he's a person who chases down people who jump their bond, and he's I guess we'd call him a bounty hunter in a sense. Tonight, I'm going to cut it right here real quick. In terms of time over to Aros, he and his team are going on a manhunt tonight. They've got a guy that they're going to be converging on and taking down, and his team's going to get here sometime during the time he's talking. So you get to meet the rest of his team. And Aros is going to explain his bag of tricks and stuff like this. This guy knows what he's doing. One of these days they're going to be making movies about this guy, action flicks. So anyway, Aros, you're on.
In order, I'm a private investigator first, executive protection, and bail enforcement agent are kind of equal in there, maybe 15–20% of my time. But otherwise, it's private investigations first. With that, I want to give you some options. Because there's not a lot of time to dive into it, I've got a lot of different stories. We can talk terrorism, counterterrorism. I'm in a PhD program right now at Walton University. My doctoral research is in human trafficking, counter-human trafficking. And I've done some doctoral research in my residencies. My last one was in Puerto Rico. I'll be going out to DC next month for my next residency. So that's an area that I have a lot of passion about. In fact, terrorism and human trafficking was introduced to me through my potatoes class. It was a social issues class. And when I studied those two topics, they resonated with me to the point that I knew that I could not be happy unless I did everything I possibly could in countering those social issues. That's why I'm here. So with that, I've got my bag of tricks and gadgets for doing PI work. I'll just go ahead and start out there and show you some of the cool things that I've used in private investigations. Last year I did over 100 PI cases from San Diego to Denver, and there were all kinds of different cases. A lot of them were just plain old insurance fraud type cases. Locally, I've actually built a clientele for doing counter corporate espionage or corporate theft, and the business owners would hire me to come in and interview the suspected employees that are either sharing trade secrets or stealing product. And I would sit down with my little recorder, and I would have an opening statement. The thing with recorders, you want to have a very good beginning and a very good ending. And when I say a beginning, you want to be able to indicate and make sure that they know that it's being recorded and that it's with their permission. You indicate the date and time, and you make sure that they spell out their name and their social security number. And then at the end of the recording, you do the same thing. You ask them if they knew that that their interview was being recorded, and then you ask them if that was with their permission and if they understood all the questions, and then you say the date and time at the end. Why would you do that?
Then they can't say that they didn't know.
Yeah, okay, what about, that's for the date and time. Why would you say the date and time again after?
See how long it was.
Yep, it's exactly, so you can see how long it was. If they try to say that you edited out a piece of the video, then the video can be timed with a timer from start to finish, from when you say that, what the exact time is and when you ended the time. If it was edited at all, then it won't match up. So those kind of things, little tricks of the trade. I was actually trained as a private investigator through the G4S Corporation. They're one of the largest companies in the world, over 630,000 employees, and there's 700 private investigators. I was in a division that is compliance and investigations. They're known for having security guards mostly. There's all kinds of different cameras and things that you can use in private investigations. There's these little button cameras that you can just put them through a shirt or anything like that and just push the button and start recording. Sometimes these don't do very good video, but any video is better than no video. One of my highest profile cases was performed with a $10 video pen. Just a dumb little pen. And this was a man who was trained in counter surveillance, did a lot of time performing that same type of work. And that's the other thing about private investigations is not everybody is guilty. And the first thing, if you get into this industry, the first thing you want to make sure is to let your client know that you are not their junkyard dog. There must be a reason for an investigation. It's not because they don't like somebody. I get it all the time. Somebody don't like somebody else, they want me to dig up dirt on them. That's what I tell them, I'm not your junkyard dog. But if there's a viable evidence of fraud, anything like that, and you need that proof, I'll go get it. Because if they're participating in fraud, then I'll figure it out. And we'll get that proof. Yeah, go ahead.
So do you do divorce cases?
Yes, I do domestic. I have a domestic case right now, which is involving children. I'm very, very cautious when it comes to domestic cases because they can be dangerous. The people are not thinking correctly. Emotions are really high. It's not very pleasant. You want to be very professional when you start taking on those kind of cases. And you're welcome to ask questions if you have things that you think of. There's so much to cover. I'm just going to just present different things here. And if you want to hear more stories or whatever, or hear more equipment about the equipment, then I can do that. This here, I developed it for one of my first PI cases. I was down in LA and my subject went into a McDonald's, and all I had was my cell phone, and I didn't have a hoodie. If you have a hoodie and headphones, you can pretty much do anything. You can pretty much record anybody you want because people just don't think that you're doing it. They think you're just listening to music. So right after that, I went out to Walgreens, just found a book that I thought might be interesting. And I turned it into one of my most effective sources for capturing photos. So
that's one of my favorite authors, by the way.
Is it really?
Yes. Good murder mysteries.
So when you're recording people, what are because don't they usually have to give permission to be recorded and all that stuff, so how does that factor in with investigations?
No.
No.
As a licensed private investigator, you do have a lot more leeway. You guys can't just go and tail somebody. That would be stalking, and you can be arrested for that. As a licensed private investigator, you can. And with that, they do full background checks on you and make sure that you're not a criminal as much as they can. And then, you know, they basically give you permission to do those kind of things for your work. And with that, I can be walking around with my book and just be videoing you. Can you see
The dog.
the camera? Yeah. And I'll just pass this around and let you guys look. I just took a razor blade and cut it out for a cell phone so that the cell phone can fit inside the book, and made a little hole in the bottom. And you'll notice that there's two little dots that I made by the camera, and that is so that I don't have to look at, or my fingers blocking the lens. I put the dots as close to the camera as I could without blocking the video. And the secret to using private investigation equipment is to practice and test and make sure that you're proficient with it before you go into the field. Because you're not going to continue to use that same client or gain new clients if you screw up with your equipment. And so, based on how my fingers are, I know that I can capture footage of you in the conversation, just like that. So I'll pass that around and let you look at it. I have this little earpiece in because we use this on our team, our bail enforcement team. You'll meet the guys when they come in. We do have a strong lead on a local fugitive. We're gonna go after him, and we do a four-way call. So we're all on comms. So these work great because you can whisper. We usually, when we go and inspect a house for the fugitive, we'll have a couple of us go around outside, watch the back doors while one goes to the door and another one stands and provides security and backup for the person at the door. I have an earpiece in right now that I can hear clearly with my team. You're not going to see it. You can't see anything, right? Yeah. It's actually literally an earpiece. It's really weird when you put it in because it's a magnet. It's a little tiny magnet, and you tilt your head and you drop it in, and it just makes you. But it goes right up and touches your eardrum. And when it drops, it goes thunk, and it is weird, but it doesn't hurt you. It's just weird. So I have that in, and then it uses a magnetic resonance to communicate. And so this is the mic for it. I would only use this for our CIs, which are confidential informants. Sometimes we'll hook them up and just have a cell phone on, and then we'll put it in their pocket, and then they'll go in and talk to the fugitive, and then they'll use code words so that we know when to move in. A couple nights ago, no matter how well you train, you're going to have team malfunctions. Okay, we had gotten a strong lead on a fugitive. We went, set up surveillance, sent the CI in, and we had a code word. The code word was Marco. If we were to hear Marco, we were to come in immediately. And we were stationed about 2 blocks away because this was a professional fugitive. They had people on lookout. Usually they were teenagers on bikes. It was late at night, and these kids ride around the neighborhood on their bikes, and they watch for guys like us to come in. And so we had to be 2 blocks away. Our CI was talking to the fugitive, so we knew the fugitive was there. we didn't want to have to storm the house. We wanted the fugitive outside the house to make the arrest. Much easier that way. And it's very dangerous going into houses. That's the main time that bail enforcement agents ever get shot, is in a house. And so we try not to go into the house if we don't have to. So while we're listening to the conversation, he says, "Where's Rico?" Marco is the code word. And he was talking about a real person with her. "Where's Rico?" Our driver goes, "Let's go." And he starts going, and I'm thinking, did he say Rico? What did he say? And I said, did he say Marco or Rico? And he said, "It doesn't matter, it's close enough. He wouldn't say it if it wasn't the code word. He probably forgot." We go racing in there. As soon as we come around the corner, it's like we kicked a beehive. People are coming out of the woodwork, kids on bikes taking off, riding in every direction to warn their people that they work for. And this is here in St. George, by the way. We're kind of going pretty quick. It's probably close to midnight coming through this neighborhood. We have cars speeding past us, that all of a sudden their lights come on, so they have lookouts in cars also. So they're speeding past us to get to the location. We pull up in front of his car, turn the lights on, nobody's in there. And he goes dark. And we're trying to get him to respond. We can hear noises. Sounds almost like we don't know what was going on. And so we're telling him, "Talk to us. We gotta know where you are. Where are you? Where are you?" And so we backtracked back to the house and just went in, and they were on the porch. He heard us coming, but wasn't expecting us to be coming, because he said he had his phone muted. So things happened. It worked out just right where we were able to surprise this fugitive anyway, and we apprehended the fugitive and took him to jail. Communication is so important. It happens even though we team train with firearms as well as team movements and things like that. It can still happen. There's all kinds of different types of cameras. This is a little key fob camera. A lot of these things can just be picked up on eBay. It doesn't matter how expensive or nice it is, it's how well you can use it, okay? The $10 pen camera, it's just a matter of how well you're able to use that camera. I like to use video goggles also. For some reason, even though it's got a little shiny camera on the front, people just don't observe it. And usually, when you're outside, they especially don't recognize it. On the radio today, I was talking about situational awareness and the different levels from white, yellow, orange, red. Most people operate, especially on college campuses, operate in condition white, their headphones on, or they're texting or whatever, they're walking around, they're not paying attention. And that's how most people are. And it's typically pretty easy to do private investigation work because of that. And so outside, people definitely don't notice. If I came into a place of business and was having a conversation with you, I would just simply take the glasses off, and sometimes just to make sure the video is nice and stable, I'll set them down and talk to you and capture everything that you say. So I do like glasses. It is fairly discreet, and I want to talk about situational awareness. Because even as a PI, you need to operate in a higher level of awareness. I've been put under surveillance myself, caught onto it, used counter surveillance techniques, and was able to figure out who it was, ran their license plate, figured out they were a PI also. And that was it was because of a case where I was doing surveillance on a professional. They weren't a PI, but they were a professional fraud artist against insurance companies. They caught on to me as a PI, doing surveillance on them, and they turned around and hired a PI to do surveillance on me. And I was in a tire store waiting for my car to be done, and this guy walks in and he made eye contact with me, and my first thought was that I felt like he was observing me. And so you want to always establish a baseline. What's normal, okay? In here, you guys are all normal. I'm not sensing anything of any kind of CI from any of my fugitives. I don't sense anything like that. You're all different, but there's a baseline. You observe those kind of things wherever you go. I had a surveillance case in Denver, and I lost the subject in a giant mall. Giant mall. We're talking 4-story mall. There's 4 different levels and thousands of cars outside. So I went in, and this lady actually she walked with a cane, but she was younger. So I went to the kiosks and started talking to them and asking them, hey, did you see a lady with a cane come past? Because there's not a lot of people with canes. Then while talking to them, I needed to make sure that I used counter surveillance on him, because I didn't want him to see her and say, hey, somebody's looking for you. So she was in her 40s, even though she walked with a cane. Once I realized that he hadn't seen anybody with a cane, then I indicated that it was an old lady. So now when he sees this middle-aged lady with a cane, he's not going to say anything to her. So you need to be thinking about those kind of things. And then I used a process of elimination. I went to each end of this mall because it was so large, and I basically, the last section where she could have been, I was able to observe her. I saw her and was able to stay back and get the footage I needed. So that situational awareness is about being smart and using counter surveillance techniques. Some of the PIs I've worked with, they would have just went out and talked to the kiosk guy and not really cared or put that much emphasis into preserving the investigation for your client. And when you operate like that, then your client's happy and they tend to rehire you. Same with the case managers. Yeah, so that is, I guess this is also one of my favorite private investigation tools. This is it's an ID card, but it's also my business card, and it's got a camera on it also. Even though it has a different shape to it, people don't ever question on whether it's some kind of camera or anything. And it works great for doing door approaches. I've had to get to speak with people at the front door to confirm residence location for one of the services in private investigations is called process serving, where attorneys will hire a private investigator to go and deliver court papers. And I will have private investigators call me and just locate somebody. I don't do the process serving. It's not in an area that I want to spend much time on, really. But if a process server absolutely cannot find the person that they need to serve, then sometimes they'll hire me to go find them. If the person's alive, I'm going to find them. My team is very good, and we'll talk to people, we'll find CIs, we'll go the extra mile to locate somebody, because when it comes to dealing with professionals at counter surveillance, like fugitives, you have to do more than what the average PI is used to doing. And so It helps me as a private investigator because I will find my person. It might take a while sometimes. Yeah, go ahead.
On average, how long does it take you to solve a case?
It really depends. That arrest we did the other night, we had gotten that case an hour before. There's also one person, Fugitive Cruz. This guy is a part of a gang associated with cartels. We really wanted this guy. He would be going back to, he'll be going to prison for a very long time from on he was here. And we worked with a local task force because they wanted him too. They liked our information that we have already, and so we worked together. They had us take the lead. I ended up being the eyes in the sky, so I found a business that was close by the fugitive's home. Sorry, I would completely silence it, but I need to be in contact still. So I was doing surveillance on the top of a business and getting the footage that we needed for the subject. Unfortunately, we were pretty sure that we had been observed by one of his confidential informants, one of his lookouts. Saw us, because as we moved in, I had observed a guy that was paying attention to us a lot more than he should have. When I approached him, he had a cell phone, and as he saw me walking up to him, he was doing this stuff. You know, and I didn't have a right to go and interrogate him. When it comes to our fugitives, they have basically turned all their rights over to a bond company. And the bond company gives us the authority to go get them. We don't have to read them the rights. If the property is listed on the bond, then we can breach that house and search for that fugitive. Yeah. But when it comes to citizens that aren't associated with the bond, we can't touch them. We have to be very, very careful about what we do in enforcement because you're dealing with people's constitutional rights. You just they don't mess around with it. So you must have proper training to do this. Anything you want to know about that?
How do you usually find the person? Like if you never, like you got a new case, how do you start?
Okay, sometimes we'll get a case and all we'll have is a name and a birthday, or maybe a name and an address. I'm the skip tracer on our team, and so the first thing I do is, and skip tracing, if you don't know, it's actually finding the person, it's skipping and tracing them down, it's kind of combined work like that. The first thing I do is I run a background report. I use TLO, which it uses credit information and gives you last known addresses. It will give me a kind of a balloon map of known associates or family members, and then I will just start from there and just figure out where they are. If we can't find that fugitive, then we will go to family members. And everybody that bailed out of jail, they have to have some kind of cosigner. And so we'll go to the cosigner, and if we feel like the cosigner is protecting them, which happens quite often, and so we're looking for signs of deception in the interview, speaking with them, we will, if we feel like there's deception going on, we'll do everything we can to prove that, and then we can use that against them because they would be harboring a fugitive and they could get in trouble. We can't do any kind of arrest because they're just a citizen. But we can use that as a threat that will call law enforcement and show them that they're harboring a fugitive. Anyway, any other questions?
What do you look for when someone is doing camera surveillance on you, but they don't make any like the general mistakes? What do you look for?
Okay, all right, I started going into that. So I was in the tire store, and while I was in the tire store, then I saw the guy look at me, and I thought it was beyond my baseline. And so I decided to walk outside. I went outside the tire store and sat down. At this point, I didn't think I was under surveillance. I just thought it was awkward to the baseline, and so I changed my situation. As I was sitting outside, he came outside and was standing in eye shot. And the first thing I noticed, again, I applied the baseline, what's normal, what's not. There was no reason for him to be standing in the spot that he was. There wasn't anything to sit on. It was in the direct sunlight. There was no reason for it. If he was standing there smoking a cigarette, then I would have been like, okay, he's just doing his thing, smoking a cigarette. I don't smoke, I'm a good Mormon boy. I've done that. He's standing with a cigarette. And people just, if you have to be on foot in an awkward place, you can pretty much stand anywhere with a cigarette and you will fit into their baseline. But he wasn't doing that. He was just standing there. So I entered back into the facility and he came back in. So now I go from yellow to orange, thinking, okay, I'm definitely being observed. So I go back outside again and I start widening my parameter of focus. And I'm looking out across at the park. In fact, I'll just tell you, this happened up at, so I'm sitting laying against some tires. I'm not letting him know that I'm on to him. And as I observe out in the park, I see a vehicle that I had under surveillance the week before. So this PI called his client and told him, we are at the location of this guy that was following you. I'm putting two and two together. I don't know for a fact, but I imagine this is what happened because this is what I would do. And he told them to come into the vicinity of the area to observe me so that he can know for sure whether I am the person who was following. So I see their car. It has very, very distinctive markings. You cannot miss it. It was definitely, absolutely the car. And that surveillance was done. So they came down, and the coincidence or the chance of it being right there was too high. So I observe this guy that's observing me and figure out which vehicle he's driving. I send some texts to one of my other agents. We run his plate. We do a quick background. He's a private investigator. Yeah.
Hey, Aros, talk a little bit, explain a little bit more about those levels, because, one of the things that's interesting, he talks about, level white, level yellow, level orange, level red. And the thing about it is that as a police officers are always operating, I would guess, at level orange, probably. And again, like he says, most people operate on level white. They're oblivious to what's going on around them. And even in places like St. George, there are people who disappear. Boys and girls, men and women, you young girls here are targets. And when you pull into a parking lot, you should be aware of who's in the parking lot, what cars were, who's sitting in that car next to where you parked and so forth. And talk about those levels in regards to citizens and also in regards to your job and police officers' jobs, would you?
Yeah. If you knew what I know about human trafficking, you would definitely never operate in condition white. You just wouldn't do it. And condition white is almost opposite of being paying attention. It's almost like you're forcing yourself not to pay attention so everybody else is paying attention to you. And in combat, a general's first goal is to disrupt the communication of the enemy. If the wolves out there are targeting you, or whoever they target, they're going to look for somebody who has the most distraction, who are definitely operating in level white. If they're operating in level white, then they can plan and make things happen, and it happens all the time. Condition yellow is when you wake up in the morning and you realize that something could potentially happen. This is my team, so. Hey. Oh. Hold on. Okay, what's going on? Okay, I sent Aaron a pin drop. Did you not get it? Okay, I'll send it to you too. Okay, I gotta go, I got a whole bunch of kids looking at me. Alright, goodbye. They're finders and they don't have.
While he's saying that, just to give you an example, I personally operate on a level of mild paranoia. When I pull into a parking lot, and I'll see cars and so forth, I will kind of scope something out in terms of something looking suspicious. Is this the kind of person that wants to break into a car? And I might go into the east side of Walmart and walk through the store and come out the west side door and walk back down on through the parking lot just to make a surveillance to see what's going on. You know, and that's something I just did. You do police work. No one's above suspicion. You know, you're checking people out. You're looking for people that could be potentially committing a crime, maybe against you. You know, especially in a parking lot. You know, people are coming out. They've got their groceries, got the cart, and the fact that someone somewhere deep in the parking lot can come out between two cars, put a gun in your ribs, and do a holdup right there. And so I'm perpetually operating in a world of paranoia, but I think it's a healthy paranoia. You know.
Sure. Based on that paranoia, if somebody, I don't know, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, I probably would have considered that paranoia. But what I can tell you now, as a professional private investigator, that if you're in a group of 30 to 50 people, there is a very, very, very good chance at least one person is being observed by a private investigator in that group. And I say that because I observe people almost daily. And I know that I get observed. And I know that my family and friends get observed. So call it paranoia if you want, but just pay attention. Don't operate in level white.
It's called self-defense.
It is. It's just completely self-defense. The wolves out there are not interested in anybody that's going to fight back. They're just not going to. I have a friend that just told me a story today. He said that one of his friends down in LA had his daughter get kidnapped. She was driving her car